On Larry King Now, could this man change the face of healthcare forever? Dr. Patrick SoonShiong.
We are closer now ever in the history of cancer to understanding what's causing it and how we can actually catch it, stop it. We've built this now and launched it this week, the world's first clinical operating system that actually link any medical record anywhere. This is very difficult for blind people to see. There's no braille on money. So the opportunity then to say $1 that rapidly, bend it over, it'll still tell you $1 instantaneously. Now you enable the blind to see.
Plus,
and I'm excited to say we now have patients with metastatic pancreatic cancer still free of disease 5 years out.
I thought that was impossible.
Yeah, that's what makes me excited about things when people say, I think that's impossible.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Still fighting his sinuses, but getting better. Hey, there are a lot of words that apply to today's guest. Surgeon, drug designer, entrepreneur, philanthropist, innovator, visionary. With his company, NantWorks, Dr. Soon-Shiong has dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars to developing technology designed to personalize, streamline, and improve our quality of healthcare. In a city full of highly successful people, Dr. Pat carries an enviable superlative. He's the richest man in Los Angeles. Does that, when you hear that term, does that flatter you? Or
no.
How do you feel when you hear that?
Silly.
It is what it is.
Yeah, because that's not what, I don't think that's what defines me. It's not about being the richest man, or I think if they said I was the best basketball player, I'd like that.
That'd be different. Walk me through your recent work with cancer care. According to your website, genomic analysis that used to take 11 weeks now takes 47 seconds. Genomic analysis on cancer. Explain this.
Well, I think, what we now have been able to do as a result of President Clinton funding the Human Genome Project, we can now take tissue from a cancer patient and analyze these genes. It's 22,000 of them, 3 billion bases in your human body, and define what's causing this cancer and actually what's driving the tumor. If we know that, we know then how to treat the tumor. So that's a major breakthrough. The problem is we need to know that information before you start the treatment. So now you have a disconnect, because if you can only take 11 weeks before you can get that answer, and you got 10,000 patients a day, you need to build a supercomputer that can do that in seconds and have the data before you actually start the treatment.
How far away is this?
We're there, actually.
We're doing it?
We're doing it real time as we speak. We're doing 1,000 genomes a month right now. So we made this breakthrough. We built a supercomputer. We connected the United States. And we just announced yesterday with President Clinton, Genomics America, where now we'll be able to collect this information in real time and be able to isolate the information to make a clinical decision before treatment begins.
So simply put, this means that you find out what the treatment will be much faster than you knew before. So the patient doesn't wait.
Not only what the treatment is, you actually have now some insight into the cause, and you have insight into what's driving it. And so you can now quantitatively and predictively make some decisions.
How does genome know the cause?
Because the gene, it's like hip bone tied to the knee bone. The gene's tied to the protein. So as the gene actually gets abnormal or mutated, it actually makes an abnormal protein. And the protein then drives actually the cell to cause it to spread. And so if you then know the gene and you know the protein, then you know the drug.
What is your specialty? You're a doctor. You were raised and learned your medicine in South Africa, right?
Yeah, I grew up in South Africa. I was very young when I was an MD. I was 23 years old, came to this country, actually went to Canada, got a master's in science, came to UCLA, became a full surgeon at UCLA, then got a grant from NASA as part of the NASA Space Shuttle Science Program. I'm also executive director of the Wireless Health Institute at UCLA, so I wear all these different hats.
When you say surgeon, general surgeon?
I was a pancreas transplant surgeon, I was a cancer surgeon, I was a gastrointestinal surgeon, but really wanted to take on the challenge of the pancreas, which is...
What is your specialty called?
I'm not sure. I think that's my problem. I think there's no box. You know, I don't look at life in these little boxes, these siloed boxes and these labels. At the end of the day, I consider myself a scientist looking at the wonders of the biology of your body and trying to figure out how we can actually improve health.
This oncologist, though, I've interviewed almost every type of specialist. And oncology must be the hardest because you're dealing with so many people who you know are dying.
Right.
How hard is that?
Very hard, you know, and especially in children. So, you know, one of my earliest decisions, I was going to become a pediatrician. And I decided I just couldn't do it because it's very difficult, especially with a young child and the family member, to be able to tell them that your child is going to die. So
You think we're going to cure it?
we are closer now ever in the history of cancer to understanding what's causing it and how we can actually catch it, stop it. And I talk about it in this way. Never before have we ever been at the point where we can touch and feel the cancer cell at the attomolar level. I know that sounds technically and geek, but it's true. We've never been able to interrogate this dance of proteins that's happening inside the cancer cell, causing it to be cancerous in real time at the concentration of the protein that's effective in the cell from the blood. We've now been able to isolate the cancer cell from the blood and interrogate it, which means now we're going to treat it like infectious disease. We can cure a staphylococcus infection, and we can actually now go after this cancer cell and try and understand what it's doing and stop it.
Aren't all cancers different?
Well, that's this whole dogma about being in a box. You have a breast cancer specialist and lung cancer specialist, and it turns out this anatomy is a fiction of our limitation of information. A breast cancer and a lung cancer patient actually could be the same cancer based on the same proteomic profile. So the tumor may have gone into this abnormal dance, and you happen to have landed in the lung or the breast. It's the same cancer. So one of my challenges, we need to break this dogma now, and where the classification of cancer has nothing to do with its anatomical type, but to do with its proteomic signature.
You've developed an enormous database of treatment options, right? Research, clinical trials, patient records.
You need to look at the human being in its totality. So when you look at research, people do these silos. Well, we'll do the gene research, and we'll do the protein research, and then we have these clinicians doing their medical records. Nobody's actually created this integrated. We have now created this largest integrated system.
Can genomic analysis be used to treat a lot of illnesses?
It was actually initiated to treat rare diseases. So it was for cystic fibrosis and soon diabetes, cardiac disease, inflammation, even infections. And we've gone after cancer because obviously that's the plague I think we need to address very early on. One of the challenges I thought I'd want to take on was to think about the two things that will affect humanity. One is influenza. That could wipe us out. We get next Spanish flu, the H1N1. The other one is cancer.
Cancer care is just the tip of the iceberg. Up next, Dr. Pat will show us the iPhone app that helps the blind, and you're not going to believe this. Dr. Pat is with us, an incredible man, and we hope that this is the first of over the course of a year or two, maybe many visits, as we learn so much about where he is going and where he is taking us in the field of medicine and other areas. Modern technology makes all this possible, right? I mean, 10 years ago, we couldn't have been talking about this.
No, we could not have. I think now with the evidence of the supercomputer, the camera in the phone, the wireless technologies, the cloud, we now have the ability to, with this infrastructure, to create an augmentation on a collection of human wisdom and bring it to you and I.
Why did it take so long to computerize medical records?
It has taken so long because we're in this archaic, disparate system of building medical bridges to nowhere. So unfortunately, when the medical records were built, it was built on Medicare to actually pay a bill. It wasn't built to actually bring wisdom to a doctor. And we've now just launched this week the world's first clinical operating system. You think, you know, you have DOS, so Windows, and you have iOS, you have Android, you have Netflix. You never had anything like that in healthcare because it was just like a complete different discipline. So I happen to be a physician who also is the executive director of the Wireless Health Institute at UCLA, and said this is what the country needs. So we've built this now and launched it this week, frankly. The world's first clinical operating system that actually will link any medical record anywhere.
Okay, now help me with something. You're not an ophthalmologist, right?
No.
So tell me how you can come up with an app, a device that deals with the eye.
It's actually not the eye, it's the brain. So the idea was I needed to understand, because my concern, and this was the impetus for this, cancer doctors now going to have 1,000 facts. It's impossible for them to make a decision in real time. And so how do we actually have what I call artificial intelligence and machine learning, where we have a tool of all these facts coming together and bringing that, which really means how do you have the brain work, which means then if you understand how the brain works, what is the brain? The brain is the input of light from your eye. So it means I need to understand how the eye recognizes, what does the eye see, and how does the eye compute. And the brain is the most amazing thing, how it computes. What you and I are looking at, I'm looking at the tip of this phone, I'm looking at, and I'm capturing it all in, but I'm filtering it and knowing exactly what I want to focus on. So that's called machine vision. So we brought together some of the world's best mathematicians. Now these are mathematicians, astrophysicists, completely people in a different world, and said, I want you to get together, and I brought teams together, and we built a system that can now compute on this device and compute like the brain is computing. The applications for this is remarkable because this is very difficult for people to see, or blind people to touch. There's no braille on money. So the opportunity then to say $1 that rapidly, or $10 that rapidly, $20, and bend it over and it'll still say $1, and bend it over, it'll still tell you $1 instantaneously, is a remarkable opportunity. Now you enable the blind to see. If I can enable the blind to see with planar objects, and I can enable the blind to see with three-dimensional objects, imagine if we could go to the next level by actually saying to the world, I now need to actually expand myself into the room and let them see this entire room, and every little color is actually computing in real time, including your crew out there, in this room, and it's, it's saying your book. So I now can do spatial recognition in 3 dimensions. So this is how your brain works. Your brain is actually all these little computing of all these edges, these shapes, these features, 2 and 3 dimension. This has never been done before. It could never have been done because without the computing power and the combination of algorithms. So we're getting closer to the speed of how your brain...
Is that a better computer than my brain?
Not at all yet.
No?
No. No, this is just touching the surface of just recognition, because your brain still does recall, memory, interactions, emotions, empathy. We're trying to get to empathy soon. What this will do now, though, it'll be able to browse the physical world. So instead of it being limited just to the web, where you have to go browse the web, now all of a sudden the entire world is browsable. So by that, what I mean, we've created a thing called the recognizer. Now imagine I'm blind and I pick up the book.
Larry King by Larry King.
The book tells me what I've done.
Larry King by Larry King.
And then I...
Conversations about tomorrow with Larry King. Frank Sinatra picture.
So the ability then for us to recognize anything in the physical world.
So the blind person then would be handed, and he'd know what he'd have.
In fact, this app is out. It's called LookTell, a money reader. It won the FCC award last year. We quietly put it out for the blind. This is called the Recognizer.
Coming up, how Patrick's South African upbringing influenced his current work. Stay with us. coming up with this extraordinary gentleman, Dr. Patrick SoonShiong, an incredible story. He grew up in South Africa during apartheid. You weren't black, you weren't white. Were you subject to racism? How were you treated?
I was Chinese, so I couldn't vote. I had to sit at the back of the bus. Couldn't own property. I wasn't black, I wasn't white. I could go to a movie house, unlike a black or white. I could go to a sports game. I trained as a medical student, but had to work in the black hospitals. When I graduated and they said only four members out of the 200 had the right to work in the best white hospital, I said, okay, I'm here. And they said, oops, we have to go to the Pretoria government to give me the permission, which they did, provided I accepted 50% salary. So I was the first Chinese ever to work in the white hospital. As
an intelligent man, what did you make of that idiocy?
You know, it's interesting. I grew up there, I was born there. And when I was born into apartheid, so that was just how life was. Think about it. I did not see TV in my life until the age of 19. There was no television in South Africa. So we listened to everything by radio. So in a funny way, we're in an isolated world. The dignity of the black people and how they stood up to that really inspired what we did, inspired what I do today. So only since we've come to America now, you look back and you say, what craziness that was.
I knew Nelson Mandela, spent time at his house, interviewed him. When he passed, what emotion did that bring to you?
A great emotion. You know, I actually, about 7 years ago, went back, took my children, went to Robben Island, went into his cell. I was part of a NUSAS, an activist. I was also put into a police station because I refused to carry my ID card as a student. I worked in the TB clinics, understood very much the pain. He was a great man. I mean, without his vision, his insight, his ability to actually bring his captors into the government, we could have had a terrible bloodshed. And
yet you go on to become an incredible life, the riches, the foresight that you have. You buy a beleaguered drug company, and you develop a cancer-fighting drug called Abraxane. What made it superior to other drugs?
Well, this again was the dogma, right? It was during the phase that actually I was part of the NASA space shuttle program and was building stem cells. So I built the world's first stem cell for diabetes that made insulin, and the stem cell kept on dying, and I couldn't understand why. It just so happened that NASA was also sending albumin, this human protein, up for crystal structure analysis. And I read about how albumin actually fed these cells, and I said, oh my God, here's a epiphany that if we could make a nanoparticle of this human albumin, it would actually feed all growing cells. So when you think about it, you lose weight, whether you have breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer. Maybe that's the ubiquitous reason why everybody loses weight, because the tumor feeds on the body's albumin. So if I made a nanoparticle of albumin, put a drug in it, it could be rat poison and trick the tumor to feed and kill itself. It was during the entire era about people saying starve the tumor. And it horrified me because my hypothesis that if you starve the tumor, you cause it to spread. You've got to feed the tumor and kill it. So nobody would believe that. So I had to leave the university. It was painful. I left the university to go build this nanoparticle that nobody had ever heard about, and then spent the money to go after breast cancer, lung cancer, and pancreatic cancer. So today it's approved for breast cancer, approved for lung cancer, approved for pancreatic cancer. And I'm excited to say we now have patients with metastatic pancreatic cancer free of disease, still free of disease 5 years out.
I thought that was impossible.
Yeah, that's what makes me excited about things, when people say, I think that's impossible.
You sold both drug companies, right?
I sold both companies in 2008, 2010, because by 2005 I realized the nation, the world, had not prepared itself for what I call the digital revolution. Meaning the amount of information we're going to need to now develop based on the genomic and proteomic data. Just 10,000 patients in the United States alone is equivalent to 30 times the download of Facebook per day, or 8 times the entire library of Netflix. Who and how are we going to deliver that kind of information on a daily basis around the world, around the United States, never mind the world, so the doctors can have the information so that people won't die? I started having these kinds of conversations again, and nobody could understand what the heck I was talking about. So I said, well, I've learned my lesson with Abraxane. The only way to do it is just quietly do it. And that's what we've done now. So I sold the companies so that I can put all these resources in a very quiet way to build a national information highway.
Do you ever go back to thinking, I was raised under apartheid, I had to ride the back of a bus, I was very poor, and here I am now. Do you ever, like, pinch yourself?
When I play with Kobe, yeah.
What made you buy into the Lakers?
That's exactly, my passion is basketball, right? I mean, I played basketball. That's another thing in South Africa. So what could you do? You'd have sports. And so I played against the white players who were big rugby players, big rugby.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I had to develop a jump shot.
You ever miss operating?
Oh, I miss operating a lot. You know, I used to do these things called whipples, where you take out the entire pancreas, the most complicated operation. I did those procedures.
We're talking about why Dr. Pat opted into Warren Buffett's giving pledge in our final segment. Plus, he'll answer your questions next. We're back with Dr. Soon. This is incredible. Obviously, we just touched the surface. We'll have to have him back. What do you want to show me here?
Well, you talked about the giving pledge, right? So one of the reasons
you signed it?
I signed it, participated in it. And while Bill Gates is doing amazing things in terms of what he's wanting to do for Africa, I looked upon how we could make one of the most major impacts on this planet, and using our technology and using our insights. There's 700 million hearing impaired or deaf people in the world. Hearing aids cost $4,000. There's only 7 million hearing aids. And why? Because you cannot, you do that as $2.8 trillion. And you need a specialist to actually tune your hearing aids. So with the power of wireless and Wi-Fi, we built this thing. We built this little hearing aid that is tunable by a smartphone, which now means one smartphone can actually tune an entire village. And this hearing aid now costs $300.
You put it, and you need your smartphone with you?
Your smartphone, the smartphone will actually tune this and personalize this to your hearing loss, the tones, the sounds, and there's an amazing algorithm, both here and in the phone, that actually interacts with each other. Which means now that we can now take this technology, and we've now created the most sophisticated headsets that is tunable to your ear, and with sounds that can give you the high fidelity of music. So here we are in our world where we actually have this capability. We buy headsets like this for $180. And we're going to launch this thing called Notes. We're going to sell these headsets for $100. And it says every time you buy 2 headsets, we'll give away 1 hearing aid. My goal is to give 1 million hearing aids out in the next 5 years or 10 years. And if we could, we can give 10 million hearing aids out. Imagine that. It's $4,000 times 10 million. The math is enormous. So we can take our luxuries of what we do and share that kind of
When is this available?
Now.
Now?
It's available now.
Where do you get it?
We actually just released this in the Dominican Republic for free, just over Christmas. And we're putting this together now, and I now need packaging specialist. I'm not a packaging specialist, but this is the world's first prototype. I'll let you have this. This is people now want this so much because the hearing here is so incredible. And we'll probably launch this in the next 3 to 6 months.
We have some questions for you. Mark Webster of Facebook. What do you think the dollar value is that the healthcare system can afford to spend to save a human life? How do we put a value on a human life?
I don't think you put value. I don't think it's, look, we spend in our country now close to 20% of GDP. We spend $2.7 trillion, going close to $4 trillion. We spend more than any other nation in the planet, yet we're 13th in the world in terms of outcomes. So it's not the amount of money we spend, it's how we're spending the money and the amount of information, and are we making the right decisions. So it's not a dollar issue. It's really, we have enough money to create the best care in this world.
Music is my life, asked via Instagram. What do you think about the use of medical marijuana and its benefits for the research of cancer and other terminal illnesses?
You know, it's interesting. Medical marijuana has a real positive chemical effect. There's no question about it. It actually has an effect in the brain. It affects people with nausea. It has a real, now clearly the abuse of using that as an excuse, and it depends how you need to manage these medical marijuana stores and shops, and validate that in fact you're not going to create bad quality and impurities and actually create danger. That's one of my fears. But there's great validity in medical marijuana.
M. Fogel86 via Instagram, do you support Obamacare?
Well, I support the concept that medical care is a human right, and the working poor and the poor have as much right to medical care as you and I. Maybe more you than I in terms of
That'll be the day.
But the truth of the matter is, what I worry about is that we've done insurance reform rather than health reform. So it's not about a matter of shifting dollars. It's about a matter of shifting care, making us go after keeping you healthy rather than waiting till you get sick and then reacting to it.
Which is the next question. Stephen Boroff, Facebook, asks, what new advancements can we expect in preventative medicine?
Well, everything we're doing is about preventative medicine in its context. We can actually identify the circulating cancer cell. We can actually do your genomic analysis. We can actually create nutritional, and there needs to be accountability at all sides, not just from the provider, but also from the patient.
You're a very talented, you're a doctor, a businessman, you're a technical whiz. What aren't you good at?
I can't sing. I can't play much instruments. There's a lot of things I'm not good at.
I asked Dr. Stephen Hawking, supposedly the brightest man in the world, nuclear physicist, astrophysicist, what is something you don't know about? What puzzles you? And he said, women. What puzzles you?
Well, I don't think women puzzles me because I have an amazing wife and amazing daughter, and as you notice, most of the people working around me are women, because the thing about women, they get things done.
On that note, I thank you. Thanks to my guest, Dr. Patrick SoonShiong. We're going to have him back. Visit Solve Healthcare. Go there and learn a lot more than we've learned today, and you can find me on Twitter at King's Things. We'll see you next time.